start with you, Christy. Just want to introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Christy DePaula. I have a freshman at BL, Michael, who graduated from White Rock last year. He went here from pre-K 3 all the way through 8th grade. And then my daughter Casey is a senior at BL, who went here from pre-K 4 all the way through 8th grade as well.
And I'm Kara Kennedy. I have 3 kids who two are here, and 1 went here. And my 2 that are here, Hugh is a 7th grader, Hill is a 4th grader, and then this is the other one.
I'm Ren. I go to Talmud Tag now. I'm a sophomore, so I graduated in 2024. I went to White Rock from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade.
I'm Jack. I'm a sophomore at Bishop Lynch right now, and I was White Rock from 5th grade through 8th grade.
I'm Amber, I'm Jack's mom, so I have Jack, and then I have Emma, who's in 5th grade.
I'm Emily Cabral. I am Isabella Good's mom, and she is a junior at Booker T, Washington. She was here she was in Montessori from primary all the way through 8th grade, but here for 2nd grade on, and also have my son Finn, who's in 8th grade now, and has been here since primary.
My name is Anastasia Bird, and I graduated from here in 2009. I'm an interior designer. What was the other question? Oh, I was here from pre-K all the way to 8th grade.
I'm Abby, and I'm a junior at Bishop Lynch, and I graduated here in 2023. And I was here since pre-K to 8th grade.
I'm Abigail's mom and Ashlyn's mom, and as well.
Okay, I think we're ready for you, Michael.
Hi there, y'all. My name is Michael Thomas. I graduated from White Rock in 2014, which is kind of crazy to think about. I was there from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then after that I went to Woodrow Wilson, where I was in the International Baccalaureate program there. And then after that I went to Regis University in Denver, Colorado for a couple of years, and then I've since then finished up my associate's degree at the local community college. I work as a professional golf caddy at a local golf course here, and I just think, quick word about White Rock, it just kind of gave me the social, intellectual, and community-minded tools that really just helped me be successful in my adult life.
Hey everybody, I'm Ashlyn Dewey. I graduated from White Rock. This is also crazy to think about, 1 year after Michael in 2015. After that, went to Bishop Lynch High School, and then after that, also headed to Colorado. What can we say? It's a thing, I guess. Went to CU Boulder, and right now I work as a software engineer for Amazon. Also tagging along with a few comments about White Rock. What I really felt like it gave me and my class as a whole is a growth mindset. We got to see every opportunity to learn as a challenge worth overcoming, and we did it together. And that's something that I've taken with me into my life and use every day.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm moving chairs. I'm so thrilled that we had such a great turnout that we weren't planning for. So I'm going to ask some questions, and y'all just chime in. And guys on the Zoom, I know Zoom is hard. Just feel free to speak up and say, I'd love to answer that one, or I'd love to take that one, okay? Because we've got a wide range here. So we don't have any freshmen, but we've got a couple sophomores that graduated 2 years ago. We've got Ashlyn and Michael that graduated. We've got Anastasia. I don't know if Anastasia told you because I didn't hear your introduction. Sorry, but she's...
You're fine. I think I missed a couple things.
She's currently serving on our board of trustees. I don't know, I've talked to some of you know this, but our board structure is set up that it is alumni parents or alumni. And so Anastasia is the representative of alumni on the board, which is really cool. So let's get started. All right, first question. How was your academic transition to high school? Ren.
Okay, so,
Yes, Ren.
like, going into, because I go to TAG and I like knew going in that was like a huge, like an academically focused school, so I was like very nervous about that. But then like getting there and like kind of, I was like secure in, I guess, like my planning and like my methods, and like I knew how I learned, and so I think like looking back on my freshman year, there wasn't really a time where I was like, I don't understand the concept. It was all the concepts were easy for me to grasp, and I think that was just because like I knew how I like to learn, and I think that's something that White Rock taught me that was really important. And same thing this year, I just like, I love to learn, and I think I got that from White Rock. I think that's really important.
Who else would like to answer that question?
I-
Go ahead.
Going into Bishop Lynch, I felt like very prepared because like I instantly kind of noticed the difference between like other people and like myself. I was like kind of like more motivated to do work, like and I wanted to do work, but I felt that was interesting. And I feel like White Rock really like helped me like want to learn and like not procrastinate as much. And also like organization and like scheduling, like when I'm gonna do homework and making sure I know when tests are. So I think it prepared me very well.
Yeah, go ahead, Christy.
So I will tell you something I told Brenda. When I originally asked my son if he wanted to come talk here, he's a freshman who was here last year. My son said, White Rock didn't teach me anything.
That is not what we want to hear.
I was a freshman, and I said, Michael, you learned so many things at White Rock. You took a summer class, you made an A, you're doing fabulous at school. And he's like, he begrudgingly told me a couple of days ago, I guess you were right. I have been taking math and I know everything that we're talking about. So I think a lot of times, you know, I joked with Brenda, he doesn't have the maturity yet to recognize how prepared he actually is. But as a parent, looking at how well he's transitioned into that environment, it's been great. He transitioned so well, especially those of, I know several of the 8th graders know him. He has transitioned very well.
We love Michael.
Yeah,
Laura.
So I have a kind of a unique situation because Ash is fully launched and living on his own in DC, and I've got somebody in high school. And I will tell you that the transition for both has been very, it was a very seamless transition, but the most important thing that I think I can tell you is that both of them will talk about group work still. And Ash and I just had a conversation not too long ago because he just helped launch a project, and Abigail will talk about group work at BL, and they both learned how to manage groups, which is, it's such a huge dynamic piece of White Rock from early on all the way through. I can tell you that as a parent, it makes me super proud, and it's kind of fun to always come back to, well, I guess you learned that at White Rock, you know? I mean, it's a big deal, group work.
Beautiful. So, how about the social transition to high school? Ren?
Again, I'm just going to start like when I was going into high school, I thought.
And by the way, Ren goes to TAG, and if you don't know what that is, it's the School for the Gifted and Talented, and it is ranked, what'd you tell me the other day, Kara?
Well, you were saying that it used to be #1, and it did, but now they're 9.
Okay, they're number 9 in the nation. So this is like in Dallas. They used to be #1 in the nation, which I did not know. That like blew my mind. And so anyway, I just wanted to give you a frame of reference to the type of school that, you know, some of our graduates, including Ren, is going to. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, sweetie, go ahead.
But I knew, I was really nervous about it because like my graduating class was what, 9 people? And so I was like, oh, like I'm going to school, and like TAG is not like a huge school, it's a 130 kid class. But I was like nervous. I was like, you know, like I don't know if I'm gonna find my people because I'm so used to just kind of like getting along with like everyone. It's like I was scared of cliques and just like that kind of formation of groups. But during my freshman year, I kind of like found a group, I'd say. But I like one of my favorite things I learned from White Rock is like your friends don't have to be like you. Like can make friends with people who are different from you, and I think that's so important. And so it's like, I'm friends with most people in my grade, and I love that. So.
Nice. Jack?
I'd like to kind of like add on to what she was saying. Like, I was nervous going to BL because my graduating class like 250, and I was at a bigger school before White Rock, but not big like that. And but I was also just like super excited about this transition because like if you get yourself like involved in like clubs or like sports, it's really easy to like find people that you can connect with and find your group really early on. So yeah.
Gotta find your peeps. That's right. What about to university? So what about, could you remember back, Ashlyn, Michael, maybe Anastasia, like when you transitioned to college? That's a little maybe harder because, you know, 8th grade to college is far removed, but can you articulate like, you know, academic preparedness, which we have to credit your high schools too, of course, but is there anything that you attribute to your education at White Rock? Yeah,
well, I was actually going to say that White Rock prepared me for high school, just in a being able, because I went as an IB program at Woodrow, so it was a lot of writing, a lot of research, a lot of like hands-on, like doing your own work. And honestly, White Rock prepared me for high school, which ended up being harder than my freshman year of college. So honestly, White Rock prepared me for college better than it prepared me for high school. Because college was kind of a breeze because of my skills in research, communicating with my peers, and working in groups. Because I found myself in college working in groups a lot in my classes, and I learned all those skills at White Rock, especially in middle school, 7th and 8th grade. Group work was so fundamental to what we were doing out there.
I'll kind of piggyback off that because I feel like I went to TCU. I also don't think I mentioned that. I think I missed a couple things, but I think the time management soft skill that you learn from legitimately when you're in pre-K here, especially in middle school, I think that time management skill of being able to, or having the opportunity to really manage your own work and your own time, and that I went to a First Baptist Academy, which I also didn't mention, but it's like more of a traditional learning environment, sit in front of teachers, you know, switch classes every 45 minutes, and college isn't like that. So I think same with my experiences, I really understood and was able to work best in group settings with time management in college than I was in high school. So I feel like it emphasized my background in Montessori when I went to school and did well in college versus in high school where I was not as happy, I guess, in that learning environment.
Yeah, I would say for my observation too, like even for Bella just went to intensive this summer at UNCSA, which is, it was like a mini like prep for what college will be like, and she loved it so much, and the time management piece, and also just like self-management and being like a self-directed learner. I think she is so ready for that and excited for that. And I see that the transition to college for her will be like a joy because she'll get to do that. Because in high school, you're back to sort of more, you're not doing as much self-directed learning as she was able to do at White Rock, and being able to do that again will be very exciting for her.
Ashlyn, did you want to add something?
Yes, sorry, it's difficult.
No, you're good, you're good. I saw you unmute.
I have to agree with what everyone's saying, that, you know, what was really impactful for me was in middle school, how we had both individual and group work every cycle. I don't know necessarily if the cycle process is still in effect. Essentially how it worked is that the year was broken up into parts, and within each part you had a group, and with your group you had a set of objectives that you had to hit by each deadline, and then individually you also had a set of objectives that you had to hit individual deadlines to throughout the cycle. And I felt like college was a lot more similar to White Rock than high school was to White Rock, if that makes sense. When I got to college, it felt like, wow, I I can directly see a relationship between what I was prepared for and even middle school, and the way you have to think about doing work, the way you have to plan out the work. Some people are talking about time management. That is huge. That self-directed learning is huge, and all that contributed to my collegiate success, I would say. High school was really about like getting a lot of the foundational info and a bunch of subjects, that sort of thing. But the way I actually thought about college and how I tackled the work, how I approached the work, how I approached group work, individual work, that all came from, and I attribute to White Rock. And I'm very grateful for it.
And I want to emphasize what he said too, of like the middle school aspect of that, because I think we talk a lot about, you know, Montessori being, you think more of Montessori being the lower grade education a lot of time, but I think something that's so special about what people don't talk about is the middle school and the success of the middle school Montessori program. And all of the things that he just said is because of, I feel like, emphasized in that middle school programming.
That's great, Laura.
Just a comment on the structure of the middle school, because I will tell you, for me as a parent, middle school at White Rock was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. And here's why. By the time they get to 7th grade and 8th grade, it's like an incestuous, hormonal cesspool of like ick between the boys and the girls and the girls and the girls and the boys. It's awful. They hate the teachers, they hate each other, then they love each other.
Is that true, y'all? I see Gray and
Finn knows. Anyways, so
Parker,
I'm
no.
saying it's like the most amazing growth though, because they go off on these trips, land labs and everything else, and they gain so much that they don't actually appreciate it until later. Like when they get to high school, even now as a junior, I think she's just starting to really appreciate maybe her experiences. Ash has certainly been able to be more reflective because he's further out. It is such an amazing movement from childhood to adulthood when you have an experience like White Rock. And I'm not saying it's easy. As a parent, it was hard. But
I think any middle school parent, regardless of where
this is
you
my
go.
own experience. So but 8 years separate, I will tell you it was the same kind of thing. And it turned out great. He's good.
So compare yourself to your peers, regardless of whether you're in high school or whether you're in university or whether you're in your career, when you're working with your colleagues. What skills do you feel like maybe separate you, or do they? Do you notice anything? And parents, you can chime in too, because I'm sure you're around your students' peers sometimes. So does anybody want to tackle that one? Yeah.
I said like a little bit earlier about like organization, but also like I guess like communicating with my teachers. Like White Rock like really prepared me for that because it was very like teacher, student, like a lot of communication, and so like I was able, like it was easier to communicate with teachers and like ask for help. And I felt like a lot of like my friends and peers were like hesitant to talk to their teachers. So, yeah.
I hear that a lot. That's feedback that I get a lot. Ren? Yeah.
I think for me, going into freshman year and sophomore year now, White Rock has prepared me with this like ability to kind of like step back and like look at a scenario and see both sides and not just zero in on one side and like one opinion and be like, oh, well, this is the only way, or like, you know, but to be able to look back and be like, well, I like parts of this and I like parts of this, and like, isn't there a way that I can kind of like fuse these ideas together and like trying to unite people, because I think a lot of people get like stuck in their ways, and I think that can be really damaging, and I think White Rock helps me like to avoid that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I've noticed that I've been so grateful for is, I remember Bella the first year starting at a much bigger high school, you know, and going like even just on passing periods, there's so many kids in the hall and it's really overstimulating, and you know, all of the self-reflection work that they do throughout middle school is so transformative, and they learn so many self-regulation skills. And she would be like, I really miss PR, so I'm gonna take this moment during, study hall, because it's really overwhelming when there's all these kids, and she learned so many ways of what she needed for self-care, to like regulate herself, and how to take time to do that. And
Can you explain what PR is for people that don't
personal
know?
reflection. So in middle school, they have personal reflection where they reflect and journal, and they learn a lot of like breathing, and they learn so many ways of regulating their nervous system. And she uses that all the time. And that is, gosh, that's what you want every adolescent to learn. And that is not what all adolescents are getting.
And I think it's not just middle school. Children learn that pretty young here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that I noticed is some traditional things that we learned as children that many children today don't learn. My daughter was in a classroom and they wrote letters to somebody. She was the only one that knew how to write in cursive. She was the only one that knew how to address a letter. She was the only one who knew where the stamp went. Like some very traditional things like that. She had to do a project once, and she was the only person in the classroom who knew how to do a citation. Like nobody else in the classroom knew how to cite a source. And so there's kind of some of those fundamental things that, I don't know, like I just thought all kids learned those, and apparently they don't. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wow, that's crazy.
What about like those of you that are in the workforce? Ashlyn, you're already working. Anastasia, you're already working. Do you notice anything? My son is a Montessori kid, right? Obviously, poor kid, didn't have choice. No, I'm just kidding. But, he'll every once in a while, he'll say something about the people that he works with or communicates with, or, and I think he got that from being a Montessori kid. So, Anastasia?
I do think, and again, it's, environment throughout my life and different influences, but I do think that I started at my job as an intern when I was 20, or I think 19 or 20, and I used to have to call to make lunch orders and stuff, like that was like part of my job. And I would get, looking at the interns now that we have are so scared to pick up the phone and talk to a rep and order samples and order food or anything. And even our 4-year designers, junior designers, are still dealing with that. And I still see a little bit of a lack of confidence that I didn't have from and I'm an anxious person, kind of not the most confident person when it comes to those kinds of things. But I think Montessori, kind of like you had mentioned with teachers, Montessori really starts from so young when you're interacting with people as entire people. You're not talking to authorities differently, or authorities not talking to you differently. And I think that kind of subconsciously trained me to just interact with people as their people. And even if I'm younger, if I'm not in not in an authority position, it's great to kind of see that and then be able to influence those people to be more confident. But I think that the confidence to speak to people, contractors, anything, that comes from rooted in my Montessori education. So yeah, I think that's one thing that I've noticed.
I'll go here. Something that I remember from early on is I was at White Rock from 1st through 8th grade, and it didn't matter what grade it was. It didn't matter who my fellow students were. We were always doing something, whether it was in the woods and making forts together, whether it was making little plays by the amphitheater, or when we got to middle school, we were making cutting boards. We were going on adventure trips, I think now the land labs, and going out and exploring and doing things. And I feel like in the workforce today, there's quite a few people who may not have necessarily the same mindset of, hey, I can do this. I'm going to take pride in the work I do. And if I can't figure out at first, I can figure out how to do it. And I felt like myself and all my peers had that mindset that kind of sets us apart as White Rock Montessori graduates, that we are doers and we're able to get things done.
Michael, did you want to add anything? I saw you unmuted.
I'll just add a quick thing. I mean, I kind of work in a different environment than, I'm a little less corporate. I'm on the golf course all day. Like, my job depends on my communication skills and my ability to adapt on the spot and communicate with 4 different people in quick succession. And I think just the skills that were given to me from day one at White Rock, where you have to resolve conflict, you have to communicate with those around you, you have to, yeah, it helped me with my communication and my adaptability skills when I'm running around on the golf course all day, but still trying to be zoned in and communicating effectively.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. So one of the biggest parts of a Montessori education is soft skills. Lots of them have been mentioned, but can anybody maybe add to those types of skills? And when I say soft skills, I mean things that are like executive functions, right? Very highly effective people have high executive function skills. So is there do you want to add anything? I mean, we talked about time management. Is there anything else that you learned in your Montessori education? I'm mostly talking to the graduates, but that you'd like to add to that? Yeah, Michael.
I was going to say conflict resolution and how to, when you're in uncomfortable situations, whether it's at work, whether it's with your friends, or especially with your partners in your relationships, the ability to resolve conflict was massive for me, and being taught that from a very young age, and to be open-minded and listen to the person across from you and not have preconceived notions about what's going on.
I think, like, this is like an adult planning, but in Montessori, you have this huge chunk in your day of time to yourself, like from primary all the way up to middle school, you have a chunk of day for individual work. And like the motivation to say, hey, I'm gonna do work now, and like wanting to do the work and like learning to not procrastinate that. And I see that in my classmates a lot. This is kind of going back to the last question, that it's like when we have work time, they're like, I don't know what to do. It's like they're lost without like this. And it's like, you know, I can see them like growing in that, but I feel like very lucky to know what to do, and like I'm secure in that, I guess.
Yeah, good time management and reset time.
I think I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Okay. I would also like to add on to what Ren said. Like I definitely see a lot like people, like my peers aren't motivated at all in class, and they're like, oh, I'll just do it later, and I'm like, well, that's kind of a bad idea because you're gonna forget, or like you might need help. So, so like I try to get things done like when I like in class if they give us time, like I try to like take advantage of the time like I have to do like independent work.
I was just gonna add emotional intelligence, I think is also just as a whole, something that when I meet somebody that's a Montessori student, or that was a Montessori student, is pretty prevalent and noticeable.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to say, of all the kids, because I've known Michael since he was little, and Ash obviously, and I've known Ren and Jack and Abby, and I know Finn, I know a lot of the Montessori kids, and I have a breadth of age. I will say these kids are tenacious. It's like this, you know, in whatever their belief system, Bella, you know, when she gets behind something, these kids just, they are so passionate, and they want to get it done. And one quick example is the other night, Abigail has, you know, struggled sometimes with getting these big projects done because they get a little overwhelming. And she literally spent from midnight until 2:30 in the morning crying as she was rebuilding a mousetrap car that was due the next day that she had been working on diligently. And at midnight I said, you know, you can just take the F. I don't care. I mean, it's easier. And she's like, no, I'm gonna do it. She worked and worked and worked and got through it because she didn't want to give up on herself or the project really wanted to see it through. And it was, I mean, it's kind of a big lesson for all of the kids. They do grab onto these things and they get so much out of it, and there's a personal investment, I think. You know, I can think of when the kids used to sit in the woods and they'd build these, Ash would tell you, these monetary system, and they'd have this whole thing going, and he'd come home and tell me, oh, they sold this and it wasn't enough money, and you know, you're wondering what are they talking about. But they're so tenacious and so determined, and the passion that comes out of it. I look at these kids and I'm so proud of all, because each individual, when they go to TAG or they go to Booker or they go to BL or wherever they end up, they bring to these schools something that a lot of these kids don't have it from the other feeder schools. They don't have the same energy about their curiosity.
That's why I want to say we have 7 high schools sitting over there. We only have 15 kids at the middle school. So to have 7 schools show up, because why? Why are they here?
They want our kids.
They want our kid, right? They want our kids. They want these kids to elevate their test scores, probably. I mean, I'm thinking like an educator, a traditional educator. But they really do see these students. We had, last year we had BL's academic team come and meet with our middle school team because they wanted to learn, what is this Montessori magical thing? I think they wanted me to like give them like a paper that said, this is what you're supposed to do. Guess where I took them? To the toddler environment. And I made them stand there and watch, and they were like, their eyes were this big. And then they met with the middle school team, and I think they left a little disappointed because, you know, we talked philosophy, right? It starts from day one here at White Rock, and in any Montessori education. And so, but they seek our kids. They want graduates. Yeah, because
I want to add on to what Laura said. I think most of the kids that come from Montessori are very resilient. My daughter in particular has had a couple of things happen, and she's extremely resilient because they learn that failure isn't really failure. It's like learning
opportunities.
It's learning opportunities, and they don't, or at least my daughter, and I think in many of these kids, they learn that there are opportunities to learn something different or do something different. I kind of give you an example. She got injured last year, and she's a dancer. She really wanted to be an officer on her drill team, but she got injured, and it wasn't going to work out because she was injured for tryouts. And, you know, some other person it might have just crushed. And my daughter's like, all right, well, what else can I do? You know, what's the next best thing? And I think that there's just this culture of, if this doesn't work out, then what's the next thing? And I really like that. And I think that's pretty consistent with most of these kids. I would agree.
And I think a lot of that comes from like, it's not just all about academics here, and it's not just focused on what is an F. Like, I'm assuming, I would think, what do you mean? You gotta finish it. Like, that's the completion. It's not an F, it's completing it or not. So I feel like what Montessori education in White Rock in particular does is see a student like as how we're putting them out and as a whole person versus academic strong only. We've got a lot more to offer than that.
We all know the #1 indicator of success, right? Like, it's not IQ. You all know what it is, right? It's grit and resilience. People who have grit and resilience are achievers because they're just like, I'm not going to give up. I'm gonna work through it. And we are a culture of mistake making. You're exactly right. If I make a mistake, well, I'm just gonna learn from it. Yeah, go ahead.
And there was just one other thing I wanted to add about the soft skills, because this just came up on Friday, and Bella was telling me about an interaction. She was having a challenging conversation with a teacher, and there was actually administration in the room observing the class, and she learned assertive communication at White Rock, and she was telling me about the whole conversation, and she said, I knew that I wasn't going to lose my temper because I would lose all my power. And the administrator was watching this whole thing happen, and he came up to her afterwards and was like, I'd really like you to, write down your experience and because she was able to have that communication but not lose her temper in that moment, she knew that she was going to be better able of getting her point across, and that's a big thing to learn.
It's huge. All right, next question. What stands out to you as a pivotal experience at White Rock? Maybe that's not it.
I could go here.
Yeah.
So I'd say the most pivotal experience for me at White Rock was probably the outdoor adventure trips that I got to experience my 7th and 8th grade year. I'm not sure what form of that looks like now at White Rock, but my 7th grade year, we got to go on a river trip to Santa Elena Canyon down to Big Bend National Park. And that's really just, I mean, now I'm just such an avid outdoorsman and adventurer. And it really just instilled this sense and spirit of adventure in me, which I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and we still do that, Michael. So, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, perfect. Good.
I was gonna say that we had Fairfield, that was just like camping trips that we would do. I don't know if you still do that, the adventure trips too, but I think like the group work and was never an outdoorsy person, but I think it just was like, it's so funny because being in Montessori, that's just the norm. Like, you do go outdoors, you spend hours outdoors, it's just part of the learning, and it isn't like that for other students at other schools. So I think it's just such a cool memory to, like, you have chores and you're cooking everybody breakfast and you're pitching the tent, you got to figure out how the broken tent works. Like, it just is such like every single step of those trips was problem solving, and you're working with students, not necessarily a teacher telling you exactly what to do. So that's always something that I look back on as well.
I'm going to piggyback off of the landlord talks. I agree totally, and I think the problem-solving aspect, Band Labs taught me that problem-solving can be fun, and like you can enjoy yourself and like learn and like have fun solving a problem. And I think that's really helpful in high school and in like my social life. Is like, it's not like a chore. It's fun, and it's kind of like a mind puzzle, and I think those are fun. So yes.
I'll say as a parent.
Yeah.
What was your question again?
Pivotal experience.
Pivotal experience?
Yeah.
Was Red's transition to middle school, where, I feel like being a Montessori parent, because I didn't grow up in that type of education, so it's a lot, there's so much trust. Because this is not anything that we know. So we look at this and we really believe in it, but we don't have the experience to say, so we are just on the outside looking in. And so Brendan been here many years, and then when you went into 7th grade, it's a very sophisticated program. Their kids are given a lot of autonomy and a lot of, it's complex and it's challenging. And, Ren was kind of a mess. It was kind of a mess. Like, your 7th grade year was kind of a mess. Actually, that's an understatement. But we just hung in there because we believed.
Yeah.
And really, from our perspective, this was the moment that really solidified everything for Ren, because she had to feel like this is what it feels like to be really overwhelmed and to not want to be there, but to figure out the problem. We had to let you do it and let you figure out, okay, what do I do to catch up on my work, to get organized. So, and it was amazing what happened your 8th grade year was, it's like, oh, I actually want to do this because I now know deeply in my gut what the benefit is for me. And now, you literally don't. Ren just manages. That's the soft skill, is you know what you need to do, when you need to do it. You'll ask for time if you need it. Even though, you're not some big artist, but the crafty things, the difference, I got this, I know the materials I need, to ask ahead, hey, next week I'm gonna need whatever random thing. But I like that was that moment, that 7th grade explosion was the time, so.
I'll piggyback on that a little bit, which is we also had a transition into middle school. It's a big jump from UE to middle school, but I feel like what we experienced through 7th grade is what a lot of families experience or kids experience in 9th grade. So as Jack was going into high school, all of these other kids were having that moment, and we kind of just coasted in a little bit, like, oh, we've already had that transition from like what felt like this school to the big time kind of thing. And so that was, I think, a nice feeling for Jack. He really felt ahead of the game a little bit. And not only content-wise, but the soft skills, all of it. That we had already had our moment, and we worked through it, but he felt very well prepared in his freshman year when other kids were just meeting that time.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to talk about my son for a minute, and he's the one who graduated from here last year. And Michael's very opinionated, and he's very opinionated. And particularly last year, Kat challenged him a lot. And the more she challenged him, the more Michael dug in. And the more he dug in, the more she challenged. And, you know, Michael would come home and he would be so mad. And, you know, I recognize this as a really big growth opportunity for him, because it forced him to not just have opinions, but to research and articulate why he had those opinions. And I think that, to me, was one of the most pivotal experiences for him. He wouldn't tell you that, but for me, on the outside looking in, White Rock really pushes these kids to research and think and grow, and I see it in my older child, the senior as well. Like when they get to high school, they're able to look at multiple sides of something. They're able to research in a way that I don't think a lot of kids can, and they're really able to think through things. And I think that a lot of kids don't get that from a different kind of school that they get here. And I think that was really, it really forced him to grow, whether he liked it or not. It forced him to.
He had to think critically, and he was not real happy about that. Right?
No, he didn't want to, but it forced him to, and I think it's good.
Yeah.
You know, and as a parent, you know, I had that moment where I'm like, well, I could, you know, go talk to Kat, or I could just let this play out. And I could see from a parent perspective that she was pushing him to be his better self. And I liked that, honestly. And I let it happen because he needed to. He needed to grow. He needed to learn. And I like that, you know.
I have a really quick sort of summation for myself about Montessori, because I also came from a traditional background in California, but it was a little bit different. So when I came into White Rock, I thought, you know, this is the best thing since sliced bread. My kid's outside all day, he's having a great time, until he got to 7th grade, and we had a guy named Andy Mating, who was an environmental guy. And we get called into this meeting to do the outdoor week. You know, they're gonna go off for this long week, and so we're getting our supply list and all this stuff, and Andy says, and we want the kids to go to the leather store and get some leather. And I said, why would they need leather? And Andy said, well, they're gonna make chaps. And I said, why, Ash, you might remember this, maybe Michael too. I said, why would they need chaps? And he says, well, in case they run into a rattlesnake or mesquite wood, which will harm their legs. And I thought, boy, this is all about trust. But I thought it was hard when I dropped him off in 1st grade, and I had to trust the Montessori system. And now I'm having to trust my kid going off with a satellite phone to way west Texas, where there's mesquite wood and rattlesnakes, and they're gonna be on a farm that they took, or a ranch that they took ATVs out to. I mean, it was like, you guys don't know the trust that we had to have, the old parents, to have, because the adventure trips were really adventures. But I learned how early to trust White Rock and the process, and it was always a constant reminder that the trust is like, it's a two-way thing, right? We have to trust the system and know that our kids are gonna be better because of whatever experiences they have. and sometimes they fall down, and sometimes they get a little broken, but they end up gaining so much here, and I think as a result, the kids end up trusting themselves more,
Agreed.
which it's a huge growth experience.
The gift of failure.
Gift of
Yes.
failure.
So favorite memory, we got like 3 minutes, and I'd love to hear from Ashlyn and Mike. Really, we'll just go down the line. Favorite memory. Favorite memory, Ashlyn.
Yeah, it would have to be that exact adventure trip, actually.
Okay. Yeah. The chaps.
It was also pivotal, so I think I was saying it then too, but I mean, if there's ever the epitome of a chemistry altering event in one's life, that trip was it. That was, it felt like society in the raw. It was like the first taste of what like being out on my own felt like. So I have to say that one adventure trip in 7th grade.
Okay. Michael?
I would have to say the same thing, but for the year before, Ashland, when we went on that river trip in Santa Elena Canyon down in Big Bend National Park, just being completely open and in the raw with all of your peers and your teachers, and basically just having full trust in everybody to, like, I wouldn't say survive, but to I'll never ever forget that, and the adventure spirit that instilled with me.
Christy, how about your favorite memory as a mom?
Oh, I didn't prepare for that one.
Sorry, I can come back to you.
Yeah, come back to me.
Okay. Kara, do you have a favorite memory?
Honestly, that wackiness, I don't have a specific moment.
Yeah, that's okay.
Other than seeing that happen.
Yeah,
I
come
was
together.
flabbergasted.
Yeah. Ren, how about you?
On our 8th grade, or my 8th grade adventure trip, we were in Colorado Bend, right? State Park, it's in Texas. And we had decided we were gonna go hike down to this like waterfall. And it started to rain, and I remember you had to like hike down to the waterfall. And the problem was the like hike down, a lot of it was limestone, just like raw limestone. And limestone, when it gets wet, it gets really, really slippery. And I just remember there was like a cable, and everyone's like, do you remember this? We were like, everyone's like, kind of like falling down this waterfall. And then once we got there, I mean, it was so fun. We ate lunch there. I mean, my food was like soggy because water was all in there. And it just started pouring rain, and we all had to walk back to the vans in the rain, and everyone was soaking up. It was so much fun.
That's cool. Jack.
I would say probably my 7th grade adventure trip. We had to stay in an Airbnb.
Oh,
They're gonna be like bad storms. I don't know. It's just
They were glamping that year.
yeah. I mean, you can imagine. Like,
It was camp. I mean, it was an Airbnb
yeah, no,
for
and we
like
still
30
camped
people,
outside.
and we camped in the backyard.
I remember like the sewage, like it flooded over. And it's filled into my tent. And so, I don't know, it was just a lot of fun.
Adventure trips are a big hit. I mean, you're hearing that.
I loved the uniqueness, especially as they got to middle school with the trips. The other thing that, we're talking about the transition for kids, but for me, how, especially as middle school parents, we're pretty tight-knit, planning things for our kids to do together socially and planning end of the year parties, that is something that I've missed as he's gotten off to high school and the group is so much larger, right? Like I just don't know all of his friends or their parents, and I really appreciated and loved that time when we were tight-knit families that all knew each other and could text and call one another when we needed something or ask for help or whatnot. So I love that part about White Rock.
And I'm gonna add that I'm now thinking of one of my favorite things was Emily and me in freezing temperatures outside decorating for an auction that was gonna be outside that night.
Oh.
And
Sorry, I missed that.
So why are we always doing these crazy things?
It was freezing. It was snowing. There was flurries.
Oh, wow. Y'all aren't used to that.
Sorry. Yes.
Well, that makes me think like the community for me has been transformational for our family because, I mean, all these people are like our family now, and it makes parenting and family life so much better. But if Bella were here, she would talk about Land Lab and the adventure trip. and like all the wild stories. But I think what I was thinking about was the first year we were here, and Bella was in 2nd grade, which is sort of like the precursor to all of these adventure trips and land labs, because obviously this is all layered and it is happening from the very, first day in primary. But when we got here, the kids would build these forts out in the woods. And she came home when she had first started, and she was telling me about this big, secret society that they had in the woods. And she was convinced that the teachers, nobody knew. They were sure that they were out there, negotiating this secret society in the woods, and they were building all these forts, and they each had different forts, and they had this whole village of forts in the woods. And I just thought, oh, I just love this so much, because it's this prepared environment. Obviously all the teachers knew that they were out in the woods. They were gee, I wonder where all those kids went. I mean, they knew they were out there, but the kids thought that they were free, and they had so much independence, and that's so cool. And that, this is in 2nd grade, that was what prepares them for all of these adventures all the way through.
And in case we lose you, Michael and Ashley, because Zoom is an hour, right? And in case we lose you, I just want to thank you so much. I want to give our audience the time to ask questions, if you have questions. So really quickly, Anastasia's your favorite
Okay,
moment.
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
And kind of piggyback off of yours. When I think back to being at the school all those years, I think about in that long hallway and working on I was making a fish or something, painting a big fish for a presentation when I was in 3rd grade. And I remember the kids that I was doing it with, I remember the type of fish it was. I still remember everything about that, and that we were in the hall without a teacher staring over us, and they would come check on us, I'm sure more than we even knew. But I think that independence is when I think back to all my favorite memories, I thought that I was grown and was doing everything I was supposed to be. It just, there's a lot of independence, and I think that's such a strong thing to instill into kids from such a young age.
Yeah. Speaks to trust, right? Yeah. Abby?
Probably my 7th grade adventure trip. Because I feel it was a moment where everyone was just together, in the campfire. There was nothing really going on except us singing and being by the campfire. My teacher at the time, Mr. Hope, he isn't here anymore, but he had all of these traditional campfire songs, and that was the most fun thing to do. Yeah.
I have a wealth of memories that go back, a lot of years, and I think one of my favorite things about White Rock is the traditions, the rock ceremonies, the graduations, the lighting of the candles. The one that sticks out always that I hope someday you bring back was the stone soup, where the kids would line the hallways, and the preschoolers would make the butter, and the Ellies would make the bread, and the Ues would bring the vegetables, and I don't remember what middle schools did because Ash was little. But it was such a beautiful time around Thanksgiving where all the kids, the entire community of school, came together and created something together and shared a meal. And it was just such a beautiful thing, such a collaboration, that every day when I think about White Rock, I think about the community and the collaboration, the togetherness. And going back, I still have coffee on the regular with people that I met literally 18 years ago. And you can find us at any number of Starbucks or cultivars or anywhere. And it's such a beautiful place to raise your kids.
Questions before our high school reps come over?
Do they want to do
Hey, Brendan, can I say one thing real quick
Yeah, of course.
that I thought was important
Yeah.
and I got left out?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So I grew up and was diagnosed at a young age with dysgraphia and dyslexia pretty severely, and I just want to say how important my Montessori education and the resources, the patience my teachers had, and just how important that was to my success in overcoming my learning disabilities. And just just everything that White Rock does was just so pivotal to my success in that. Just
Thank
wanted to
you
get
for
that.
saying that. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Okay, questions? Y'all are awful quiet. I want to thank Michael and Ashlyn again for being with us because it's my first time meeting them and you're both delightful. Thank you.